That first weekend that school started, my parents went out of town for work. So, what else do you do when your parents go out of town? You throw a party. It felt like what I should do, and the upperclassmen made it seem like it was something I had to do in order to fit in. I told a few people that I was doing it, but of course, word spread and a lot more showed up. My mom wasn't a big drinker, but there was a basket full of bottles in the house. So a lot of kids showed up. There was weed, cigarettes, liquor. I got drunk and high for the first time. Hi, my name is Jess, and I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict.
Woo! Go Jess!
See, this was a surprise for me though, because my dad was in recovery for alcoholism. And I had sworn to myself, like a lot of kids from our type of family, that I would never drink or drug. But here I was, the first week of high school, doing it. I had always been an anxious kid, and I felt like I would walk around on eggshells in my house. I would get reprimanded for being too loud or energetic, and I didn't really have a sense of identity. I also didn't really have many friends, but when I got drunk, I felt like I could finally be myself. I could be outgoing, and I could come out of my shell, and it seemed to make the older kids like me. It was like being in a secret club, and we felt superior, or I guess better than the other kids who didn't drink or drug. My closest friend was my older sister. She was 5 years older than me, and when she went off to college, I went with her every weekend, and her friends would get a kick out of plying me with alcohol. Sophomore year, I found drugs, and my friends and I started swapping prescription medication. My parents saw that I was emotionally off, and they started taking me to therapists and psychiatrists who prescribed me different medication. My dad started taking me to AA meetings. They thought I was bipolar or depressed, but what I was an alcoholic kid. By the time my older friends graduated, I'd been getting blackout drunk regularly. Alcohol wasn't enough anymore or as available as it had been, so I started looking for alternatives. When they went off to college, all of my friends were gone. The other kids at school, the ones that we had looked down on, were either afraid of me at that point or didn't like me. I was really isolated. Junior year, I was reckless about my life, and I really didn't care what happened to me. It was October 2012, and I was at my sister's college. I overdosed on pills and alcohol. My sister freaked out, but her friends, doing the only thing that they knew what to do, told her not to take me to the hospital so that they wouldn't get in trouble. Instead, I was put in a bathroom, my fingers were shoved down my throat, and I was left over the toilet bowl for hours. My sister was terrified, and she sat with me the entire night. She called my parents the next morning, and they got me into Silver Hill inpatient. I spent a week there. The staff recommended that I do an extended program, but I refused. I wouldn't talk for 3 days, and evidently I looked like a zombie. They didn't know why I had made it out of that situation, or a lot of the other ones I had been in before. Something did help though. One of the nurses even started calling me Bright Eyes once I started to open up. Once I had that light in my eyes, which a lot of us have heard about, I was given the Step 1 packet from AA, and it was suggested that I answer the 12 questions to decide whether or not I was an alcoholic. I answered yes to 10 of them. I was only 15 years old. I got out and I told my parents, I'll stop drinking, but I won't stop doing drugs. On my 16th birthday, I was drug-free, but the weekend after, I went on a bender. 2 months later, I got sober by accident. It was kind of a God moment. I woke up and I was suddenly struck with the fear that if I used again, I would die. I was so fearful that I put together a few days and then a few weeks, but then 2 of my classmates committed suicide. I went to the social worker at school and confessed that I was afraid I would use. I got sent back to Silver Hill, and I kept trying. After 6 months dry, my older brother went to rehab for a heroin addiction. I knew I would cry. That shook me to my core. That is when I started to go to 12-step meetings. Those are the reason that I got sober, and they gave me the tools that I needed in order to stay sober. It introduced me to the steps into a new social life. It brought me to my sponsor, who had gotten sober at 22 and had about 6 or 7 years. She'd just moved to Connecticut. I went religiously to the meetings at Silver Hill and started to become open to many things that would help me in my recovery. It's hard to be a young person while learning to be an adult in the sober community. Sometimes it's a struggle, but I have my sponsor, I have meetings, and I have a lot of other resources in the area as well. After a year and a half sober, I went to college, and a friend and I got thrown into service really quickly when we started a meeting on campus. With my family, who are here, I'm closer than I ever have been to them. We have an open dialogue, and I'm learning to have boundaries. I've been self-supporting since I was 19. I have friends, a boyfriend, and I am an admissions coordinator at Newport Academy. I'm also in school studying the DART program, learning more about the heroin and opioid crisis, understanding the biology of addiction, and learning more about public health education. I also work with a fantastic nonprofit called Glorious Recovery, who's right in the front. And if you don't know what they are, they organize really fun events for people in the sober community. I've always had a desire to help others, and for me, the issue lies in education and prevention, talking to kids in high school, middle school, and even sooner, as much as possible, as soon as possible. I really feel like my goal is to help them learn to express their feelings and to give them the coping skills and the resources that they need in order to do that. Because I got sober so young, I feel like I can help. I'm now 22 years old and have about 6.5 years sober.
Yeah!
Thank you. I'm learning self-confidence, self-love, and to be proud of who I am and not care what other people think of me. I'd like to help other kids get there too. I'm so grateful to be here and even more grateful to be alive. Thank you for my life.
Oh my goodness.